Wedding parties are a huge deal in the Middle East, both in ancient times and today. Because of the patriarchal nature of the culture, when a bride got married, she went from being a part of her family, her father's family, to becoming a part of her husband's family. So in the parable that I'm about to read that Jesus shares, while we don't have all the details of what went on in wedding parties at that time, 2,000 years ago, we do know that there was a wedding banquet that was ready to take place. And so the bridesmaids that we are talking about in the passage are waiting and are near the groom's family's home. And so they are like the welcoming committee. But not all of them were as prepared as they should have been for the task. I invite you to stand as we read the gospel. Today it comes from Matthew 25, verses 1 to 13. And Jesus is telling a parable, and he says, "Then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. But the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, 'Look, here's the bridegroom! Come out to meet him!' Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. But the foolish said to the wise, 'Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out.' But the wise replied, 'No, there will not be enough for you and for us. You'd better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves.' And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came. And those who were ready went into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the other bridesmaids came, saying, 'Lord, Lord, open for us.' But he replied, 'Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour.'" Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You may be seated. About once a month, I get a chance to share a Bible story with the children of our preschool. Our preschoolers understand emergency preparation, even if they cannot conceptualize the emergency that they're preparing for, like a fire or a tornado. I was talking to them just this week about this very parable. Preschoolers, and for that matter, most of us, they are not very interested in just waiting. So one way to convey the notion of waiting, as the bridesmaids were waiting, was to ask them about the emergency drills that they have to go through. They know those drills very well, but they didn't immediately relate the drill to waiting, so I sort of had to work with them on that. But I said, they know what to do when they are preparing for the event of a fire, for example. They know where to go. They know how to file out of the building in the spot where they're supposed to gather, led by their teachers, of course. They know what to do when they are preparing for a strong storm or tornadoes, knowing what part of the building to go to for shelter, away from windows, they even told me. But it's not like you're waiting for the fire or the tornado, I told them. But because you've trained in anticipation for such an event, right now, you're actually ready and trained for something to happen. Or more accurately, you're ready if and when it happens. So you're focused in the drills so that the reaction for the actual emergency will feel like second nature. It won't be maybe as scary perhaps because you've already pictured it in your mind, and in the drill, everything turns out okay at the end. But, I told them, you have to take the drills seriously. You have to pay attention, otherwise you won't be as prepared. So the story of the bridesmaids and the bridegroom is about preparation. And it helps us think about a moment when it will not be a drill. As I mentioned in the introduction, weddings are and were a big deal culturally, not just for the family of the bride and groom, but for the entire community, which was more likely all involved and participated in it. The bridesmaids had some duties. It might not be clear to us exactly what those duties were 2,000 years ago, but duties they had, and they were important. Maybe they were like that welcoming committee to the groom returning to his father's home. Now, since Jesus tells us that this is a parable about the realm of God, then we have to ponder what are the specific elements of that story that remind us about what the realm of God is supposed to be. Well, on one level, it seems that Jesus is talking about a rather big event, waiting for the return of the groom. So in that sense, waiting for the return of Jesus to come back to earth, which was a very eagerly anticipated event for the community of the people who lived in the town, the groom returning, and also a big anticipated event for the community of believers. On another level, it seems like Jesus is perhaps also talking about the preparation for the events along the way to the large event. Preparation which required the dedication and wisdom of the community, of the believers. It would seem that in the realm of God, there are those who take the waiting period seriously and those who don't. Now, there is a value judgment in that parable, as the bridesmaids are defined as being wise. Some are wise and some are foolish. But I don't want us to miss the reality that all the bridesmaids were faithful. They were all up to the task of welcoming the groom back to his father's home. They were all willing and able. They were all there. They were all excited about it. But some had not really thought through all the implications of the task ahead. They assumed that it would be an easy, straightforward process. If they just figured this won't take long, we'll have a party in no time. Now, for some of them, not having extra oil didn't seem like a big concern. They had the lamps. They would be ready to go. This group that maybe had more experience or thought through the other possibilities, thought ahead and thought we need a little extra oil. Remember, there was no electricity, so no lamps means no party. And these parties went on for days, day and night. So oil is not the only factor. There are some people that needed to prepare the food and the musicians and so forth. But it's a very important factor, and the bridesmaids specifically were in charge of it. So then these 10 faithful women were ready for the job. But the job didn't happen as they expected. There were these unexpected delays. There was the waiting, so much waiting. And finally, they just got bored and tired and just fell sleeping. It's hard to keep up the energy of this welcoming committee. Now, had the groom not been late, we probably wouldn't have a parable. Everybody would have been fine and ready. Here's the groom, here are the lamps, there's enough oil, let's go. Or maybe the bridesmaids that were deemed foolish here would have thought, we'll get the oil when we need it, thinking that there'd be time to deal with that part of the preparation. But the groom surprises them, arrives at midnight, and there's a mad scramble on, and sleepily they're trying to snap back to attention to do the task that they were entrusted with. Now, it can be harsh to think that the bridesmaids with the extra oil are selfish. Well, get your own oil. We brought ours. But maybe they too thought that there would be enough time. They say, well, just go buy some. We have enough just for our lamps. You were planning to go out and buy oil anyway. Go get some. We'll be back. But the bridegroom arrival is even faster than they anticipated, right? So they say the bridegroom is coming, and he arrives even faster than they anticipated, to the point where the banquet starts without the ones that left. I don't think that the ones that were wise sent the other ones out to get rid of them. They just said, there'll be time. Go buy some oil, come back. There comes that one puzzling part of the story at the end, because the faithful and the prepared bridesmaids were able to get into the banquet, but the ones who were faithful and unprepared were treated like wedding crashers. And thinking about this story as an example of God's realm forces me to think that this story might be a cautionary tale, or maybe a drill. What if that were me? Would I be ready? You can't go buy an extinguisher when you see the fire flare up on the stove. You can't go pay the bill to reconnect your cell phone in order to call 911 in light of an emergency. All that stuff needs to be lined up. James Klepp's mother and grandmother played the organ and piano at the church I served in St. Anne, Illinois. When James was 6 years old, he asked his mom, Karen, who was also an elder, "What do you do at session meetings?" What James knew was that when there was communion served at the church, his mom, Karen, usually was among the elders who went to buy the supplies, the bread and the juice, and then also who were part of the ones who brought communion to the congregation. So when he was thinking about his mom spending all this time at church meetings, he asked her, "So when do you go to your session meetings? Do you guys just practice how to give out communion?" There was a deeper part of his question that he probably didn't realize he was asking. His question made me realize that being in church on Sundays was like practicing what it would be like to be the community of believers, so that the rest of the week we could do it for real with the community. Think about it. Sunday is the rehearsal. Game time is the rest of the week. James had it right in this way. We are practicing, we are preparing so that we can get communion right. Now, he thought about communion as bread and juice, but communion in the larger sense, he's right. We practice to get communion right. And as Christians, we have the big wait and then the daily wait. We can think about what it means to wait until the end of time when Jesus will return and the realm of heaven will be established among us. But we can also think about our daily wait, the daily steps we take as the realm is taking shape around us, through us, among us, and we are alongside the Spirit as this is all happening. We might all be faithful, but the challenge in the parable for us is to take seriously the task at hand, the task of being part of the expression of the realm of God, the task of being prepared and preparing for that. So maybe the work of the church and our individual spiritual practices are the drills which help us be alert and ready to live out our life of faith. So maybe these gatherings are practice and preparation for opportunities to stand up courageously for what is just, to step up compassionately when there is suffering, to speak up joyfully when we can give God thanks. Our life of faith is not aimless, boring waiting, but it is focused preparation to serve God and our neighbors at a moment's notice. The daily wait and the preparation will keep us focused and sharp, not falling asleep. In this season of Lent, we will keep meditating on our relationship with God and our readiness for living our lives faithfully, ready and waiting to follow God whenever it is that God calls us to spring into action. And for that we give God thanks. Amen.